sense sphere. You must listen to our demands.
Yeah, come on, surrender your subscription. What's all this about? How many streams do you want a week? Right. Welcome, one and all, and to this special orbit of the Antipodes and fan enclaves across our planet. You know the Detox by now. We're topical, we're honest, we get things off our chest, and then we can get on with our life, unburdened by Doctor Who troubles, anxieties, and concerns. See me as your friendly therapist, your local doctor who still does meet you face to face. I know we're rare. Our topics are looser than my usual streams, so the thread is key to guiding us and asking us and helping us help you detox before the weekend. Of course, today we will talk about the characterization of the 15th Doctor and whether RTD seems to be damaging, changing, radically altering the actual presentation and core of what the Doctor is. And we have a few fun items as well. I mean, what would Ncuti'S Doctor do as a mainstay now, of course, isn't it? So we're fresh from our fun from last night. I don't know if you caught us doing our deadly assassin. Let me just get it lined up here. I'm always classic like this. Let me wake up first. Yes, we did the deadly assassin last night. Fresh from that. So did you tune in? We really did ask serious questions there about, yes, it's a classic, but did it start to open the doors for weaker, less able writers to exploit what was set up there so ably by Robert Holmes? And obviously we're churning out the stream, so please make sure you click on the like button. I mean, that is a big button, and switch on the notifications. I mean, you can't miss, can you? So please do us a favor, and I know where you live. We have you surrounded. Surrender your subscription to us, or you will be exterminated. You've been put on warning. Yeah, we've only been going, by the way, since December the 12th, 2023, with our review of The Giggle. It would mean the world to build a community with greater reach. Oh, God, I'm starting to sound like Julie Gardner. Right. So you can obviously contact us on various outlets there. The top one there, DM me on Twitter at SenseTheSphere, or the other favorite of our viewers is email me at senseTheSphere@gmail.com, whether you want to be a panelist, you've got ideas for shows. So please do join us. Right, that's a lot of the housekeeping out of the way. So now I can actually kind of stabilize where I am. You see, look at this. It takes me time. You know, I'm still waking up from last night's Deadly Assassin. So let's get some of our friends on. Today we've got two for the price of one. So we've got our usual panelist. Hello, Dan, Cybermat Strikes in Sydney.
Hey, everyone. Hey, Brendan.
You still got any gossip about what's going on in Doctor Who Down Under?
Not much from my end, but I think Sirens and Audio might have some.
He might do, and you're giving me a hint there. So let's get Sirens of Audio on. Hello, Dwayne. So you're in Tassie.
Yeah, g'day. How are you? Thanks for having me on. I've been watching you since about December the 12th too, very regularly. So I've been enjoying the show.
Well, that's good of you, and there we go. Sirensofaudio.com. I just recently was watching there. I mean, it was very recent. You were doing a lovely interview with Caroline Ford.
Yeah, just a few weeks ago.
Yeah, and I love to hear anybody from the original era. Do you know what I mean? There's something special about it. They were there at the start. She knew William Hartnell. She knew William Russell. She knew Jack. I mean, it's fab, isn't it? I mean, just to touch history like that.
Yeah, fantastic. It's great that she's still so willing to be engage with us all, and she loves chatting with fans, and yeah, she's still happy to be involved. It's great.
Yeah, I think it is, because I was talking to you before we started the stream that, when I saw her at the Doctor Who Appreciation Society a couple of months ago, of course, I mean, what can she say now? She left it in 64. She briefly came back for 5 Doctors. She has done some, or she is doing some big finish, isn't she?
Yep.
But I mean, it's a certain period of time, and it was when she was a lot younger, and she did feel ill-served, really bad at scripts, didn't she? Really, Barbara got better parts. Ian got better parts, and I think she fell into that remit of the first companion who has to scream. Unfortunately,
Yeah. It's been good that she's been able to revisit the character on Big Finish and do some more interesting things. So Susan's War, that came out a few years ago now, maybe 4 or 5 even years ago, was a great example of what the potential that Susan could have, and it's great to see that she's got another one coming up very soon.
well, let's get on with some of the nostalgia. This is about feel-good detox as well here. So, I'm going to be throwing anything at you at various times. I mean, I think a lot of us Doctor Who fans saw that at a recent con, you've got Tom Baker, and he was there taking photographs of people. And look at him with Sophie. I mean, that man, he's not disappeared into retirement somewhere. He's out and about. People are finding him at Baker's. See him in the village. He's going to events. He's signing things. That man just continues.
Yeah, I with Tom has that look like, who is this?
But he's okay. You're loved for a certain show. He has a career that's bigger than that. This did dominate it, I know. But, he's 90, for goodness sake. But no, he doesn't have to do this. He's got enough money. He's got a happy life. He's putting himself out for Doctor Who fans. Let's be honest.
Oh, yeah.
On top of that, I think he loves to be adored as well. He's even said that in the past. He loves to be that figure of adoration for people, and in his younger days, it may have come across as arrogant, but I think he's mellowed a lot in his older years, and I think he just really appreciates it now more than ever before in his life. So it's great to see him still out and about like he is.
Yeah, well, I'm going to come to the thread in a moment. A lot of them are recognizing your voice, Joanne. So there's a few people out there who do know sirensofaudio.com. We'll get more watching from this today. The other thing about being Doctor Who fans, if we've talked about our detox and therapy, is what you've collected over the years. We all like different things. I don't think we all buy every single thing that exists with the Doctor Who label on. We all have our different things. Last night I was showing my character options, Time Lords, of course. I haven't got this, but my God, if I knew there was a Doctor Who Give a Show projector, a bit before my time, this, but is it the type of thing you'd like to collect? What sort of things, Dwayne, do you actually look out for in Doctor Who?
To be honest, I'm not really a collector of things like this, but I can tell you, if I was of that age, and I remember these projectors when they were all the rage, if there was a Doctor Who one, I would have begged, stealed, borrowed to get this particular item. Unfortunately, some of the things I have collected over the years, I've worn them out.
Yeah.
But that one you're showing there on the screen, certainly, I would have loved that. I wonder what's on the slides.
I know, and it's got Hartnell on the. I mean, you just say, "Whoa!" It's got the Zarbi there, so you wonder whether it's like photo stills from the very, very early ones. I don't know.
It's far out color too. Notice how much color they've pumped into the console there.
So as I come to you, Dan, Cybermat Strikes, what do you collect that's particular to Doctor Who, and then I'll go to the thread and see what they're saying.
I know I don't really regard myself as a collector. It's just something that's I've been a fan for so long that things have people know that you like something, they tend to give things to you, or I've had people give me bits of their collections over the years when they've gotten over it. And yeah, I'm just someone who can't throw something out. But probably my most serious collection is just the DVDs.
Yeah.
The commitment to get all the DVDs as they came out over the last 20, 30 years.
So will you be buying badges? I saw these the other day and I thought, oh God. John Daly, who was one of our original panelists and who will be back on, when I was at DWAS with him, he was, I've got to get a badge. And I thought, I don't do badges. I suppose it's each to their own, but beep the meat.
No, I've got a few things over there that like that I wouldn't go out of my way to get them. People have usually given them to me.
Yeah, I've got various things that people get me. Yeah, even with my retirement present, I get Doctor Who stuff. But you think, badges, where am I going to put them? It's not me. What about you, Joanne?
Not really my thing. If there was a Beep the Meat like plush toy or something, I might get that. That would be good. But in a badge form, not really my cup of tea.
What about some Harry Sullivan milk chocolate? That was I do remember that in the 70s, I have to say. Anything like that. I mean, the ice lollies and everything, but oh gosh. So there was that.
The only problem with that is that it's Nestle. If it was Cadbury, then that would be top notch.
Well, Joanne, you're going to get yourself chucked off the channel. You do realize that when I lived in Australia and in Ballarat, I worked for Mars. So you are the enemy camp, Cadbury's. I was on the Malteser inspector line. I'm a Malteser inspector. I've had to check out all the naked ones, the ones having little orgies all stuck together, all the crackhead ones. I've had to deal with them all over the years. So, right. On our detox, I always say it'd be good if we have our debate, but we have a laugh. I was showing this photograph last night because I just discovered it recently, and I thought there's something wrong with this photograph. The cast can have a laugh, of course they can, but those masks and the Bridgerton gear just does it. It's too far out there, and it doesn't seem to be serious. I always had the problem with that strange blue owl thing on the left.
Yeah, that's my issue as well. I can't take my eyes off it. I love watching the Muppets with my kids, and that is definitely a Muppet. And it's in Australia, it's a derogatory term too. I don't know if it is in the UK. But if you call someone a Muppet, you're a bit of an idiot. But what is it with that? Like the other ones, almost passable, but in comparison to that one, very, very strange choice.
And I'm just calling it as it is. I've got issues with Rogue, the episode, but this is just visually. I try and think of the casual viewer, the people who just tune in thinking, is Doctor Who worth watching this week? That type. And if you see something like that, it's just so far out there. You can see why people go, Doctor Who's a bit freakish weird, because to have Bridgerton mishmash with owls and stuff like that is just too far. It's just too far. And I think that's kind of... it's silly Doctor Who to me. That just doesn't work. I'd rather have a rubber monster of the 60s or 70s than that, I have to say.
I don't mind silly Doctor Who, and there were certain elements of Rogue that were getting me in at the start of that story, but I was very quickly out of it again once the story got going. So there is a place for silly in Doctor Who at times, but not that.
This is my comfort blanket. Give me a Dalek story any day of the week. I mean, it just takes me back to being a little kid thinking, oh, the Daleks, the classic default. And so this one's a lovely filament shot from Power of the Daleks. And you just think, gosh, that is just where I need to be for my detox. What's your story, Joanne, your key story that would just be, this is going to chill me out, Doctor Who?
Well, it depends. If I'm going for my favourites, I'm a bit boring with my favourites because Talons of Wang Chiang is always a favourite of mine, and Caves of Androzani. I'm a bit of a Robert Holmes fan, but I also love everything to do with Graham Williams, and I've come to admire Graham Williams and Douglas Adams more and more as the years go by. So I always go for a comfort episode from season 17, and I often choose Creature from the Pit, which is interesting because you had that picture up. That's the button, or Nightmare from Eden, Nightmare of Eden, isn't it? Yeah.
That's a
There
great
you
one.
go. Yeah. Go for Creature from the Pit and like and subscribe at the same time. No, there's nice humor in that story as well, actually. I do like it. And I love Lady Adrasta in it. I absolutely. And Arlene Way from An Earthly Child. She's in it, isn't she?
Yeah.
It's good.
Jeffrey
Good one.
Balden, his
Yeah.
dialogue just cracks me up every time.
Yeah.
Yes.
So Dan, what would you say is your go-to comfort blanket of Doctor Who?
Oh, I really struggle with that. Yeah, like similar to Dwayne, like there's lots in that through the Tom Makers that you know it really it just depends, isn't it? It depends what the mood, whatever it's I suppose usually it's something that I haven't seen in a while that I've just got it's like a craving. You sit down and go, oh, I've got a craving for a bit of Pertwee today, or I've got a craving for a bit of the 80s, you know.
We seem to say in our house that when you hear the Pertwee voice, sometimes you think, oh yeah, it's very, soothing in that way. A Tom Baker one though, even in his later period. So for example, City of Death to me is almost pitch perfect. And it's got the humor. It's a nice, clever story, really, but it's firing on all cylinders, and it's had a bit of money spent on it as well, and it's got a bit of sci-fi, and I just like that. That's from the later periods, but like I think I've said on many streams, I don't know why. Psychologically, I don't know why, because it's not on the top list of anything. Planet of the Daleks just has something about it, from the fur-coated Spiridons to that.
Funny you say that, because for me that would be like probably one that I wouldn't go to.
It's
very often.
There's a comfort to me in seeing the John Pertwee Doctor on the top of his game with all this stuff. Jo Grant is brilliant in this story because she has so much to do. She's got that infection. She's got that whispering strange alien that as a kid freaked me out. You got all them effects with the invisible, he's getting the potions and all the rest of it. She's given a lot to do. Then she has this, the Doctor has an MFI bed and a diary and all that stuff. And then the Supreme Dalek landing in a kettle, and there's a lot of Dalek action, and Terry Nation's good. Always get the Daleks and the Doctor stuck on a basement of some city, and you've got me. So yeah,
I have a soft spot for Day of the Daleks.
Have you?
Maybe because it was one of the very first VHSs I can remember that we hired from the shop, but I just love the interplay with him and Joe and Unit. It's just so, I find it really relaxing, and there's actually a good bit of time that messing around with time and the Daleks, which is really cool. Yeah.
Right. Well, I'm going to say, as I threatened, oh God, it sounds great that I'm so welcoming me to talk to the thread. Good to see you, Archibald Lazarus, Anthony Parkinson. Peter was first dibs. I wish RTD was obliged to listen to our demands. Yeah, I know the Sea Devil says at the beginning, that's as far as we get. Over the Overseer, hello again. He was there last night as well. Good afternoon, people. I'm off work today, so I'm here at this unsociable hour. We've got Michael Herbert, who obviously is our biographer of Malcolm Hulke, and he's been on our streams and will hopefully be on again, from Manchester. Barry Stroud, morning all from the colonies. Cybermat Strikes is saying hi to everybody. Crimpling de Bloom, good to see you. Ahoy, shipmates. I always saw you saying that on Type 40. It's lovely to see you say it on our channel. Archibald Lazarus, again, was weaker Time Lord Adventure after that, but Robert Holmes couldn't have predicted that. Yeah, we're talking about Deadly Assassin, aren't we? Yes, I know. That's always a problem. I think that the argument you've got to have with yourself as a Doctor Who fan is, for every classic story you get that might change and sculpt canon, you're going to get a killer one. Like, if you love Deadly Assassin, you're going to get an Invasion of Time. If you love Deadly Assassin, you're going to get Timeless Child.
I love Invasion of Time.
Well, I do to a degree. It's a bit long, but I
don't care about long ones. I like the more Doctor Who, the better.
As soon as it turned into Doctor Who running around Grange Hill, old school building, even as a kid, I knew when they were stretching out the let's run for a bit longer stuff, you know. I mean, I'm not against Invasion of Time as a concept. I love that idea of Tom Baker being a very alien doctor and getting rid of Leela and whoa, you know, what's going on? Loved all that.
Nothing
Divine and
beats a
Dragons.
lispy Sontaran either.
Yes.
Yes, I love that fair bit. Was he Cockney as well? So Divine and Dragons saying hello to everybody in the thread and ourselves. He's traveling to Houston today and hoping that he can enjoy the detox hour as he drives. This is where Over the Overseer, there's one of your fans. I know, I recognize that voice from Sirens of Audio. Archibald Lazarus thinks Susan, like the 15th Doctor, could have been given a better characterization. I think she was promised that, or she thought that was the potential when she joined. I mean, look at the first episode, An Unearthly Child. She wasn't going to play a 16-year-old, she thought. It just fell into that. John Yulden's on the longest breaks in history, but shh, we won't tell you, boss. SG, Tom is indeed a national treasure. I think I know we're referring to those lovely photographs of seeing Tom. It's nice to see Tom out and about. But then SG lowers the tone and says, I remember seeing an article about Tom Baker wife once. Yes, I think I do as well. Never got stuff like that. Now, we might as well have a quartet next time. Triple Jazz, if you can get on here next week, you've got Dwayne here, you've got Dan here. Is your name something begin with D? We'll get the whole set. I'm Brendan, so I'm nearly. But yeah, let's just see. Let's see if we can get a real Aussie thing going here. Over the Overseer, Carnival of Monsters. Yes. Well, yes, I had a photograph of it last night with the big eye. And there is something about that. I don't know why. I just like it, yeah. Triple Jazz continues. He's in Tassie. I wonder, does anyone out there who is a Doctor Who fan get annoyed or upset when a lot of Gen Z and others say you are not a true fan because you have criticisms of the more recent years? It seems to be in my DNA at the moment. That's all I get to hear. I don't go around just ranting about anything. I don't say I hate on everything. I want to give RTD, Shooty, and everybody else a chance. But I do have criticisms, and they are more than there were before. What about you, Dwayne?
I've had a few comments come back at me if I make criticisms. I don't have the opportunity to make criticisms too often because I'm not talking about the series on my podcast too often. So it's good to have the opportunity to do that. But yeah, I just don't really pay attention to that because I don't think they really understand what that means. There's been for long-term fans like us that there's been critics of different eras throughout the whole history of Doctor Who. From the people didn't like Deadly Assassin. There's still people that say that Deadly Assassin was a bad way to go, and they remember that. I totally disagree. But that's okay. And I think those people that get upset with you, Brendan, should be okay with you disagreeing with them too. But, you know, I think maybe there should be a few more backbones should be grown, I think.
Yeah. Well, and I was, you know, when in those days you start a stream and channel and all the rest of it, and you think of names and logos, and you'd spend too much time on it. And I spent a lot of time. Am I going to be called a Zero Room? But somebody else had already nabbed that name. The sense for you I came to quite early doors because I thought, well, we want a sense of perspective, I hope. We don't want to be an echo chamber. I do like debate. I'm an English teacher, for God's sake. I don't want everybody saying the same thing. And that's what it's all about. I mean, I'd be shocked if you got Doctor Who fans in the room and we all agreed. What I don't understand is when people say you are wrong, don't you understand the show? And I'm thinking, we all watch it, so I think we all understand it. It's just that we didn't think that's what the Doctor did or something like that. And it's a question. It's a question. I like debating it. I'm not saying I'm right and I'm not saying anyone else is wrong. Archibald Lazarus.
I've seen cracks in that lately, though, Brendan. There are people that were saying, you know, critical of people who were criticizing it, who are now saying, actually, this isn't what we thought it was. And they're now starting to understand why people have got criticism.
Well, the hardest thing to do is if you've shouted loudly how much you like something, it's very hard to retreat fast. You have to do it in stages, don't you? So I'm happy to give people that space. I'm actually disappointed that anybody is hating the show, including myself sometimes. It's a shame that we're in that position. Archibald Lazarus is comfort story, Dalek's master plan. It must be the audio you're talking about. Barry Stroud, City of Death, is watching at the moment. So, yep. Let's have a look. I'm just trying to catch up to date because we will let. Oh, Robots of Death says Doctor How.
Yeah, that's
Sydney
one
Sider.
I've watched. Hey. Yeah.
Gosh, we've got the Aussies in today, which is that part of the plan. The Invasion of Time is the most jarring classic story for me, says Archibald Lazarus, because why does the Doctor betray the Time Lords? He had it. Well, okay. Well, I won't go into it now, but I thought I could see why he did it. He had to. He didn't know who the real enemy was. Didn't he have to kind of smoke them out a bit?
He was trying to draw them out.
Yeah.
Pretty high risk strategy, but you know.
Yeah. Just completely risky. And this one, Sneevron Sykes. I always go to Claws of Axis to lift my spirits. Another purgatory one there.
It's a good one.
Yeah, I mean, we all have them, let's be honest. It's not always one. I agree with that as well. Right, what about this? Would this kind of the waxwork that was revealed of Ncuti'S? Well, I have to say it's very impressive as in a realization.
It's the only man the 15th Doctor could love as much as Rogue himself.
It's good for vanity, I tell you. It's impressive, really, really impressive. I have to say, it's not my thing, Waxworks. I have to say, it's not my thing. I've never been to Madame Tussauds, and you know, I wouldn't thank you really. I'm not one of those people who has to go, you know, grabbing celebrities all the time. I don't know if it's my training in my childhood that so what, we're all the same, you know. An actor telling stories about what movie they're in and the great jokes they had in the background is just like, to me, staff in a staff room having a joke about a lesson. You know, why is people more special than others? So I've never bought into this celebrity culture thing. So Waxworks, yeah, whatever. Is it your thing, Dwayne?
I don't mind them. I do enjoy a good waxwork museum when I come across one in my travels. But I guess the only thing that's missing from that is the tear going down the cheek.
More wax.
That would be,
Well, if you,
a little bit more genuine there.
If he became a candle, you could easily have the wax tear coming.
That's right. Stick a wick in his head and set it on fire.
Then it would work.
Yeah.
So, would you be going to see this, Cybermat?
No, I'll pass. It's impressive technically, but it doesn't. I find it a bit creepy, actually.
Yeah. I mean, we've had a few. I mean, look at the Tom Baker one. I think we all remember the Tom Baker one, especially because of the 5 Doctors photo shoot when they were trying to kid us on that there were 5 Doctors in it. So, have you seen this in the news, by the way, that the BBC kind of marked its own homework and said that there had been, I think it was 170 complaints about the gay kiss in Rogue. I mean, 170 is a nothing figure. It's nothing, you know, when you, the amount of people who watch things, there's always somebody who complains about everything. There's people who used to complain about my blooming lessons and they were high quality. No, there's always somebody, isn't there? Anyway, they looked into it and yeah, they had, the remarks were interesting. The BBC revealed it had 170 complaints on whether it was unsuitable watching for children. Now, obviously, as a gay man, I'm a bit, you know, this is problematic for me because it shouldn't be unsuitable for anybody. It should be just seen as life. However, I know that people are concerned that are the showrunners and the production team trying to push an agenda which really shouldn't be for family viewing. You know, it could be a problematic area. I don't know, but does anybody want to give their opinion on it? I mean, they exonerated it. So if I just go on to the next screen, you'll see a little bit more. If I just pull out. The ECU said the kiss was likely to go over the heads of children and defended the speed of the romance. So it wasn't, you know, deep and meaningful. The ECU considered the sexual innuendo to be towards the mildest end of the spectrum and in any case likely to go over the heads of children, while the development of the relationship served the needs of a fast-moving plot and was unlikely to strike viewers of any age as a model for interpersonal relationships outside this particular fictional context. My only issue was that they changed the Doctor to being a predatory type Doctor and romantic, which was unusual. And we're going to talk about that in a minute. As people know, the thumbnail is all about the Doctor's characterization, so I will come to that in a moment. But does anyone got an opinion on this? I mean, I wouldn't have complained, put it that way. That's irrelevant. I think the problem people seem to be having is bringing romance and sexual kind of dalliances into Doctor Who.
I don't. I think my issue with it is that that it comes down to what we're going to be talking about as the character of the Doctor, and this is not the character that we've seen for 60 years that goes and initiates this kind of romantic dalliance, shall we say. People say, well, what about David Tennant? He kissed all these women, and but if you go back and look at that, in most cases, even then, it was the women who were initiating the kiss, and the Doctor was kind of taken aback most of the time, even though he did enjoy it, obviously, in those scenes. This was much more of a he was the initiator of the kiss, and I think that was so against what the character was. That was my main problem with it.
Yeah, and as I come to Dan, SG, it's a good reminder, if we're trying to give a sense of perspective on Sensesphere, Ghostwatch on the BBC in 1992 is still the most complained about program with about 30,000 complaints. Now, that's a show that when you get that amount of complaints, you need an investigation. I would say 170. I think you should almost be swatting it away like a fly. But because it's a public service like the ABC, they need to kind of go into this, don't they, Dan?
Yeah, and I mean, I was going to comment, but what the hell was on that Ghostwatch to get 30,000 complaints?
Well, it was a kind of hoax.
That's what I want to know.
It was a hoax thing. They did a Ghostwatch, but it was all a setup. It was all
fake.
Yeah. There was, yeah. I remember
because it takes a lot of effort to ring up and make a complaint. Like you really have to not like something to complain about it. You just change the channel, wouldn't you? Really?
Well, some people like
do what the viewers have done and just turn off.
Well, people like to kind of, troll. It's part of the modern way of things. Mark the Vicar, good to see you. It was problematic because it only took them 5 minutes to get it on. I think that is the issue. That if this was a 6-part story, although I'm not wanting the Doctors to go down that road, at least it would have been developed. Raymond Williams, the Doctor isn't a predator. Ncuti'S plays him as a 30-year-old human male on the pull. That's not the Doctor. And I, for one, Raymond, would agree with that. I think that
I agree with that too.
Yeah.
It's the characterization that's the issue. And I think I actually think they're sort of gaslighting by focusing on the kiss, because I don't think that's the problem that most fans had. It was the overall arc in the episode and the way the whole thing was about the Doctor being on the pull and being thirsty.
Yeah, and being on the pull and not aware of world issues, universal issues, his companion's safety, was basically bothered about just how he felt about somebody else. I've never seen that in any episode of Doctor Who ever, where the Doctor was so consumed by himself that he forgot that Sarah Jane was blinded by, the Sisters of Khan, and it's so beyond what the character was ever presented as. Paul Richards,
can you put any other incarnation of the Doctor, even Jodie, in that situation? Can you imagine any of them doing that? I don't think you can. That's the first time we've ever seen a Doctor behave that way, and it's just not the same character.
Nah. Paul Richards, I've had friends fall out with me for being critical of the sexualization of the Doctor. I don't understand people falling out. It's a program. We've got to remember, it's a TV program. We've all invested in it, but I think everybody's got a right to an opinion. What I would say when people say, oh no, Doctor Who can be sexualized, is all I'd ask them is, please come on. I'd just like to ask you questions. I need to understand, because I can't see. You've just heard what I've said. How's that? I don't know how that works. Dr. Howe, paraphrasing JMS, love is slow, lust is fast. I didn't see Rogue. Which was it? It was the second one. And yes, it's not the gay kiss. And I have to say, this is the other thing. People almost gaslight you in the wrong way, don't they? They say, are you homophobic? And you're going, no, don't be daft. I'm gay, for God's sake. No, 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 no. It's not the kiss that's the issue. I don't know why the kiss was even there, is the question. And I don't know why we were going down this rom-com kind of scenario. I mean, the whole thing was confusing to me, how this was Doctor Who. If you want to do Bridgerton, go and make Bridgerton, but this was Doctor Who. It's not that the kiss that was the issue. It was the Doctor ignoring the actual plot to pursue a grinder date. Well, I have to say, Julian, I can go down the same road. They needed to get a room. I'm just glad they didn't get a room, because then it was completely out of kilter from Doctor Who. And remember, she would have died if she didn't have any nous. It was only Ruby Sunday who saved herself. I don't know how she did save herself, because it was weak writing again, which was she's with a dangerous shoulder. And you saw how quickly they murdered people, and then
they faked out the tease on that too. Like the resolution, they cheated. They keep cheating in the show. They keep editing things in ways that it didn't actually happen that way. So they deliberately mislead you that she's dead by through the interaction with that character, and for all intents and purposes, they showed enough to show that she should have been, and then they just completely ignore it when she's fine later on. So
we're not hearing anything in this thread so far that's challenging this. Now, we're not guiding you. Your guide does half the time, but you can see people are saying this was unusual. It was proactively horny. We've heard from Paul Richards, Archibald Lazarus. Everybody's saying the same thing. So I think we're warming ourselves up to actually get into the main event. One last question, lads. Screen Rant had this article. So, this is our detox of all issues of Doctor Who. So here we go. Did you see this one? Doctor Who finally has the perfect master replacement after 53 years and 9 actors. Maestro. Would you?
I didn't see this one. I did not see this one.
No, I haven't seen this.
Yes, I mean, so come on then. Are you going to? Let's explore this for a minute. The master arrived in terror.
It's Screen Rant, isn't it?
It is Screen Rant. They certainly give us some copy to discuss, but the Maestro could feasibly replace the master. The one thing, Dwayne, I've got the problem now is he saw the toy maker, i.e. and ITD, have so destroyed and diminished the master by making him a joke turned into a gold tooth that you've killed his menace.
Yeah. I finally had the chance to watch the Celestial Toymaker animation the other day because, as you know, I've been on a road trip and for about 8 months, and my parcels were here at home, so I had the chance to watch it. I really enjoyed it, actually, the animation. A lot of people don't, but I did. I thought it suited it really, really nicely. The toy maker in that is a very, very menacing character, and I thought that how he was portrayed in The Giggle was pretty good as well. I thought it was okay, but yeah, it was diminished by how quickly he was defeated, and then with the progeny that came along later, kind of turned the whole thing into a bit of a joke. So it was diminished a lot.
Yeah, it's like, please don't touch Sutek. Please, I mean, when you see it in action, as every fan, you go, "Oh, Sutek's coming back." But because of what's being done to Davros and various things now, you think, please don't touch anything. As soon as Davros happened, I did loads of streams. What would happen to the Cybermen? What would happen to the Daleks? I seem to do every week was what would you do with, because I just feared it. Hello, Action Popcast. It seems the default of many defenders is to say people are homophobic or racist if they don't like Ncuti'S Doctor. And yes, please find me the moment when I've actually talked about specifically his race, never, or his sexuality, never. I just talk about the character of the Doctor. And I know you do too. Divine and Dragon, Maestro as designed is too camp, no menace. The only bit I found, I try and be fair, the only bit in the Devil's Cord was there was a moment at that piano at the beginning with the kid, And when he seemed to kill, I think he killed the teacher, didn't he? I think. I thought, for a second, I thought, gosh, this could have menace, but the high camp afterwards, and I know Doctor Who can do camp, it has done in the past, but I don't know. There were certain noises being made when he was chewing over musical chords and that. I thought we were going down a sexual path. It didn't seem to, it just didn't work for me.
I felt that the character of Maestro had potential, and I actually thought the actor did a good job with what they were given. But the overall world building and the lore or the rules around these gods and the pantheon and that RTD seems to be trying to construct, to me, it doesn't fit together. It doesn't make sense. I still don't understand what happened with the music, because he rocks up in the 20s and then suddenly we're in 1963, and the logic of what the maestro was doing to music didn't make sense to me. Was he suppressing the music? Why was there music if he had been suppressing it? Why was there bad music? I don't want to sound like I'm overthinking it, but I really just, it took it out of, I was taken out of the world that they were building because it didn't make sense as a story.
Snag was with Devil's Card and Space Babies. I was never in each of the stories. I think I found I was sat there tutting and screaming and shouting, and I thought, I have never watched Doctor Who like this. I've watched political programs like that, like we all have, but I have never ever watched Doctor Who and started shouting and getting huffy and going, what is going on here? And looking over at Jamie going, what is this? Never have I done that with Doctor Who. So something was.
I did that in Legend of the Sea Devils.
That
was the first time I'd actually sat with an episode and gone, what the hell is going on? Yeah. This is weird.
Well, we've got the thread alive here. Dr. Howe, this show is about changes, just gaslighting. Oh, I do totally agree with you. My Roko, fans have always been divided on the new Doctor. Now we're istophobes, if we dare speak out. This is what they're trying to do. Nobody's a phobe. What you're just being is a Doctor Who fan. That's what you're being. Triple Jazz Musical. You fellows are highly entertaining and intelligent. What? Not quite sure, though, about Screen Rant. The Century is the most balanced Doctor Who YouTube channel in the Northeast, beaming live on 1 p.m. on Thursdays. You see, Dwayne, I did this the other day about the ratings, that they subcategorize the ratings until they find a success. I am actually, did you know that, Dwayne? I am the best Doctor Who YouTube channel beaming live from the UK at 1 p.m. on a Thursday with a Northeastern voice. There you go.
Congratulations. Well done.
Brilliant.
I'm in a field of one and I'm winning it. Maestro, Raymond Williams, Maestro was so over the top that the only way to do something different with the role would be to play it down. As when we have Rachel on this channel, who, as you know, is an actress, Rachel and me always agree that Ncuti'S should be more confined. Every actor should be confined. We talked about Sutek in Pyramids, and we talked about the Deadly Assassin's Master. They were very menacing, yet really all they did is sit down. That's it. It was their voice and it was their menace in their dialogue. That's all you needed. You didn't need all this stuff. Archibald Lazarus, the gay stereotyping was unappealing. I mean, we've always had a touch of it, but I know it's certainly not my episode at all. I don't think I'll ever watch it again unless I really do want to get myself angry. I'm just trying to pick up. Oh, yes, Hartnell's Ghost, Devil's Cord. The kids saying that's my daddy to the drag queen maestro. That's not disturbing dialogue with other implications. I do wonder, what do you think, lads? I'm not going into all the pronoun debates and everything now, but what I'm saying is there's a lot of things that have gone on in this last 12 episodes. I just wonder if in a few years' time they'll be edited as time moves on. You know, like Talons of Wen Chian, there's certain bits cut out now, or you get a warning. Or when I was watching Deadly Assassin 2 nights ago, BBC iPlayers edited that drowning scene a little bit more. You know, people are touching them up and changing them. And I just wonder if this series is going to be pretty censored in the future because some of the themes are not settled issues.
Who was the kid, by the way? I've still not understood who that kid
Yeah.
was, because it seemed that there was more menace to come from that kid, and then he just disappeared, never to be seen again.
Was he there at the end?
He turned up at the end, and it's like
in the dance routine, you know.
Well, I mean, throughout the rest of the series, it was like he was supposed to be there for throughout. But
were you thinking it was like the little girl in Remembrance? You're wondering if
something like that? Yeah.
So Action Popcast, overthinking is what gets me so invested I can't turn my brain off. Yes, I know, we'll have to get you back on. Oh, I'm getting a hoy from Rachel. I mean, this is in between streams. She'll be streaming again. I mean, I'm very lucky. Thank you, Rachel, for coming on. She's streaming. You check out her channel. I won't say his name. Yes, I know, she's good, isn't she? Signs of gaslighting. Insert the following. You're just a racist, sexist bigot. If you don't like the Ncuti'S show, it's been walked. Yeah, I know. Paul Richards, RTD is taking ideas from Beatles' Yellow Submarine, but without the creativity. I know what you mean. It's like a Beatles movie, isn't it? I know where you come from. Right. We've been sating your appetite, but we're going to be talking about the Ncuti'S Doctor. Now, you know that I do this segment every time now, which is just a kind of brief little of a joke before we get on to discussing the main event. And so, have you seen this before, Joanne?
I have.
Yes, I know. And you've got therapy for it, yeah? So, here we go. What would Ncuti'S Doctor do? So we have two quickies from last night's show. There was one, it was in part 3, that great Matrix episode. Very gritty, very boys' own adventure. Look at the dirty hands of the 4th Doctor, and he's messing on with poison and the thorn, and he's been shot in the arm, and he's been shot in the leg, and he's standing on dinosaur eggs, and he's in water and marsh gas and everything. What would the Ncuti'S Doctor do in this episode?
Well, one of the most frightening cliffhangers for me was that cliffhanger where the Doctor's foot gets caught in the train track, and the train comes towards him. I can just see Ncuti'S just freezing at that moment, whereas the Doctor's struggling with all this emotion on his face, trying to rip his foot out. Ncuti'S would just be frozen and staring into the distance, I think.
Yes, waiting for Mel to say. What does Mel say in Legend of Ruby Sunday? Was it stop?
Snap out of it, or wake up to yourself, or something like that.
When he punched the the wall, because he's like a little immature kid. I've seen that in school. So, Dan, what do you reckon?
Well, when he puts his nice boots into that egg, you'd be worried about his nice boots getting dirty, and you'd be crying. And when he cuts his knee there, he'll be crying. And well, I can't imagine him fighting it out in the water there.
I actually did say last night, we had 2 Doctor Light episodes in season 1. I actually would have thought that the Ncuti'S Doctor, if he saw this story in the nightmare at the beginning, when he was still in the TARDIS, he'd have had a Doctor Light episode and said, I'm not landing. He'd have said, I need to get Sarah Jane back, and she can do it all, because I'm just going to stay in the TARDIS, because I'm not getting involved in this. The other thing is, I think when you see how dirty his fingers got, I think he'd have visited a nail bar.
Well, it's interesting because I think the, it comes into that upcoming discussion around characterization. We said before, we can't imagine any other doctor stepping into those circumstances before, and I'm inversely here. I'm struggling with, I can't imagine him being in these circumstances either. So
yeah, this is how far we've moved. Action Podcast, thank you. Stop grizzling and fix it. That's what Mel said. And we've got this one. Oh yes, we forgot this. The shooty doctor might have said the train was racist for coming at him.
Yell at it.
Yeah, that was so out of order, that trying to kill him. My God. Anyway, we've only got one more before we move on to the main event. When he was still in the TARDIS, the Matrix was projected into him, you know, the premonition of the president being shot. And so he got that kind of distorted view of the panopticon crowd. He saw himself shooting the president. What would the shooty doctor have done having these nightmares? I think he would have wet the bed, I think.
He would have crawled up and in the corner and had a cry, obviously.
He might have had
that goes without saying, though, doesn't it?
Well, remember, we've had Ryan sucking the thumb under Jodie Whittaker's era, so he might have just sat in bed sucking his thumb, thinking, I just need my mammy. And then we'd have thought, oh, God, not tectone. Oh.
I can see him in the fetal position, just rocking, trying to self-comfort.
I think these things are going to come.
He rocked up and tried to crack on to the assassin, which was himself.
Well, Over the Oversea was on last night. I know I had ideas last night, but now I'm just seeing him seduce Chancellor Goth for some Matrix.
No, it wouldn't have been Goth. It would have been Runcible.
Well, the truth is, the only times apart from Rogue, the Doctor seemed to fancy people who were either close to death or were dead and in hologram mode. So basically, I've got this idea that who was the most dead? Maybe the action men. He gets all the action men and collects as soon as they've been minimized by the master. So there we go. Our little bit of jollity, although unfortunately, the fact that we're using humor should worry RTD, because this really is. Was not.
That was the one thing that I really liked, actually, in Power of the Doctor, where Sacha Dhawan's master had made all the little matchbox. He shrunk everyone and sat them along.
All the Time Lords. Was it the lecturers, wasn't it?
The lecturers, yeah. I thought that was really funny.
It was. You see, this is what I mean. 170 people will complain about a gay kiss, but they don't complain about what the way death is shown in Doctor Who. Sometimes, let's be honest, death. These are kids watching as well, and there's certain things or how death is dismissed so flippantly could also be brought into play, surely, as a complaint, if you really wanted to take your program seriously. Now,
but I question, this is where I don't trust what the BBC is reporting, because they've framed it as they're complaining about the kiss, but was that really the complaint?
Well, I don't know how
or
you
complain.
I don't know whether
I think most people have got a problem with the fact that the Doctor was thirsty the whole episode and that it was over-sexualized.
The thing is, I don't know what you do, whether you send in an email and you have a kind of feedback box and that's it. And so, you mentioned the kiss. Because apart from that, it's two men going for a walk in the garden and saying who would clean their ship better. What's the problem? Housework issues. So I don't know,
Or it's the Doctor thrusting in his general direction.
So the Doctor Who TV article had 5 complaints and observations about the Doctor as is now, the 15th Doctor. And these were the main findings. And so the first one, which I want to ask the lads about, and the thread, of course, is the increased cowardice of the 15th Doctor, which seems to be so unusual when you compare to all the others. Now, I can think, let's be honest, of other situations where the Doctor's ran away. You have to sometimes get out the corridor before the Daleks come. Genesis of the Daleks. He's running like the clappers before the bunker's blown up. I can think of the William Hartnell Doctor running like the clappers before those cavemen get you. So I can see, if I want to try and be fair, you can run away from situations to stop being killed. But are you getting this, Dwayne, that he does come across as cowardly, or are we being unfair?
No, well, I was talking to others about it at the time, and we were thinking, well, it's got to be part of the story for some reason. There's got to be some reason he's running away so early. Even in Space Babies, he had that sort of unreasonable fear that was forcing him to run away from the situation. But once again, it's never explained. Like so many things in the stories these days, over the last few years, it's just been so frustrating that these things get put out there and never explained. And when you look at the words you've got there, increased cowardice, well, you mentioned the example that I thought of instantly was that in the first episodes when they went back in time to the cavemen, I mean, he was so cowardly at that time that he was going to kill one of the cavemen while he was down.
Yeah.
So, we've seen the Doctor that cowardly before, but because of the companions and his experience with them, his character has changed because of them, and he's become a better man as a result of his companions. But now he seems to be sort of going backwards. It's gone backwards.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, you agree, Cyberman? I mean,
Yeah.
I just think you've got to think of all the episodes. So in the Goblin King, he didn't run away. I mean, I'm going to be fair. He just sang a song, and then he'd worked out the ropes issue, and he had these Mavity gloves, and somehow it was like, this is like Jack and the Beanstalk nonsense. He seems very cowardly with people. Like, he won't stand up to many humans, the 15th Doctor, I notice. He's always apologetic and everything, and freezes and stuff. With the Sutek moment, which should have been one of those key moments when, the Doctor has a head-to-head with an iconic villain from Doctor Who, he seemed actually visibly upset, scared, and then ran into the memory TARDIS, which was very handy that this memory TARDIS had been made by Ruby Sunday's memories, not the Doctor. He had to get her to focus on the lamppost like a dog. Focus on the lamppost. Focus on your mother over there. Focus. Come on. I need this human 19-year-old to save my skin. And we make this stupid hocus pocus memory TARDIS. He wasn't in 2 episodes, of course, which was handy. Is that cowardly? Where did he go in 73 yards? Did you just disappear? In Dot and Bubble, it was the opposite of cowardly in some ways. Oh no, actually, let's think this out loud. You face racists at the end of Dot and Bubble, and they are racist to you. Is it almost cowardly or the bigger person to actually then say, I'll help you out? Because I have to say, I think people have to learn consequences of their hatred. And he offered to help them colonize a new planet. Which
that whole end was so clunky. I honestly, if you didn't go and get the explanation from Unleashed, you'd miss the whole bloody point. I mean, it was so badly written, and to be honest, I think it didn't land for me. I was sitting there going, "Oh, are they seriously trying to make this point? Like, is that?" And I had to go over to Unleashed to actually get the explanation. Oh, yes, they are. They're calling us racist if you don't get it, basically.
But you see, they ran away from the Maestro because in the Devil's Cord, him and Ruby ran. You see, because RTD's come up with this pantheon of gods, they are obviously much more powerful. So maybe that's all you can do is run away. Which,
but see, this is where RTD is making Doctor Who like other shows that it never was, and he shouldn't do that. That's not what Doctor Who is. We don't need a pantheon of gods. Sutek, they were all had their own backstories. We don't need to turn them all into magical beings or whatever. And it's literally him almost formulating a Marvel universe with established characters and just bending them into a Star Trek Discovery, Last Jedi, Marvel Universe formula that and this was his great planned reboot for the new universe, and I just, it's not working, is it? Really?
No. What do you think of this, Drain? I mean, we've got Sneeve on Sykes saying the Sixth Doctor was a violent, murderous coward in his first story, but at least they tried to fix it. You've got Paul Richards saying Dot and Bubble was odd because the Doctor seemed shocked they were racist or prejudiced, and yet he'd met worse types like the Khalids, Davros, you know, Pure Race, Snyder. And Divine and Dragon, this is why I had to pair up the stories to help repair the poor narrative choices RTD made. Where do you see?
I don't quite understand the choices that were made in the story, in the sense of storytelling, because there were great opportunities there to tell stories about racism. But why not do that in history instead of in the future? Because it was a very bleak view of the future in that humans have sort of gone further backwards in some ways when it comes to racism. Is that the message that RTD was trying to put across, that there's no hope and everyone's going to be racist always? And the other way, dealing with racism is the way to deal with it if you're the subject of it, just to stand there and scream. Is that what's going to fix it, or are there other better ways of fixing the situation? It was just there were so many better ways it could have been handled. I just think putting racism in the future was a bad thing, and that's where I was like the old, not the new Star Trek so much, but the older episodes of Star Trek, that people, you know, civilization had gone beyond and had gotten better ideologically than it was currently. But this future was kind of worse than we currently are ideologically, and I just found that very, very strange.
And I found it, you know, I'm not a parent, but so I'm intrigued what people think. But as a teacher who was pastoral leader for a year group, so you're giving the moral messages a lot, and then you're dealing with kids who've been bullied and all the rest of it. To actually, you know, you deal with a bully. So the racists were being bullies in Dot and Bubble. And as you say, to scream at them and show weakness, because crying is allowed in certain circumstances. We all agree that's better for people. And I know your country, Australia, has a major issue with male suicide under 30. It's a big issue over there, isn't it? And Beyond Blue is a brilliant charity organisation that's trying to make sure that lads in Australia can have outlets for their emotions to be healthier. So we're all buying into that. But to then explode in such a way does actually show weakness. And so the racist kind of knows they've got the upper hand. There's a different ways in the Dwayne and Dan of dealing with this. But I have to say, plot-wise, to then go, right, you are nasty racist people, basically is what he's thinking. And I'm going to give you a planet to live on as a reward. I wouldn't help them at all. Sorry, mate, I'm not helping you.
But Brendan, the offset of that was that he spent 30 minutes building like a future world of idiocracy, where he was literally poking fun at how stupid the future had gotten in terms of the human race, in terms of the world and everything. And so you're immersed in that stupidity and you're just shaking your head at it. And then the next minute, in the last 10 minutes, it's like there's this bolt on, oh yeah, buy it. Plus, if you didn't notice, everyone's also racist as well. And it's like, well, geez, I mean, I was still getting over the fact that, you know, your bleak future messaging around the future of the human race, you know, if that wasn't bad enough, you want to bolt that one on as well.
Yeah.
It didn't land for me anyway.
Right. What about this observation from Doctor Who TV then? Overly emotional. Now each part of the article goes into some detail. So they statistically they said the 15th Doctor shed tears in all but one story so far. Now he's been in 9, so in 8 stories he has cried.
I thought he's cried in everything.
But as Deadman has just said in the thread, the crying was not earned. And as Rachel, who's the actress panelist, says to us, you know, it's the same type of crying, apart from what you said, Dwayne, when he shouted and, you know, his gob went everywhere in Dot and Bubble. It tends to be this silent tear. Yeah, it's this silent tear. which isn't even acting. We all know you can dab the eyes and do all the rest of it. The excessive crying, let's be honest, it diminishes the Doctor, his status. Suddenly, he's not the person you look up to as a kid. You know, I looked up to John Pertwee. I mean, he was like a granddad authority figure. Tom Baker, he worried me for a few seconds because as a kid, you've gone from granddad to what the hell? And then suddenly you could see he had a lot of strength and you trusted him. Whereas this Doctor, screaming, crying, paralyzed, indecisive, I wouldn't look up to him. Why would I look up to him? What? Because he's emotional.
Yeah.
It says there he's overly emotional. And I've seen plenty of things with emotional characters which are fantastic and they really act them well. But this emotional acting that we've got going on here it's childlike. It's like someone having a tanty all the time.
It's irrational emotion.
That's right. It's not restrained at all or controlled. And plenty of the Doctors in the past have been emotional. Plenty of them, if not all of them, at one point or another. And I would agree that yes, he's been overly emotional, but in a very childlike way.
Yeah, because I think that the article went into detail saying let's be honest, there's different ways of being emotional. Emotional doesn't mean just crying. Emotional doesn't mean just screaming. Emotional, like you said, Dwayne, about other Doctors, they've all been intensely emotional. You can tell in most stories in Doctor Who. Oh, I mean, you can hear it in Tom Baker's voice. Sarah, when he's worried sick about where is Sarah. You can hear that. But he doesn't go into a moment of indecision. Basically, he doesn't let the emotions overpower him so that he can't do anything. I think the Doctors have been worried about the planet Earth. They've been worried about various civilizations. They've been very concerned to risk their life. Logopolis, he risked his life to save the universe. I mean, that's emotion.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. When you're talking about Tom Baker, I instantly thought of his conversation with the pirate captain. What's it all for? What are you doing? That kind of indignation was totally called for, but it was controlled, justified. And when I think about the emotion that this Doctor shows, the 15th Doctor, I went out this afternoon when my son came home from school, and I said, I don't want you to play on the computer right now. I want you to do this. And he looked at me with tears in his eyes and went, but, and that's the kind of emotion I get from shooting. Yeah. I see some kid that's being silly.
Well, this leads into what Divine and Dragon, who's driving to Houston, like I said, says. The Doctor has been infantilized and sexualized, which is not a good combination. Yes, let's not go there. But infantilized, yeah. This is, as you've said a few times now, Joanne, it's immature behavior. And you as a dad, I'm sure, and me as a teacher, you try and instill in kids resilience. And this Doctor does not seem to be resilient. He needs human companions like Mel to snap him out of it. If it wasn't for Mel in The Legend of Ruby Sunday, he wouldn't have moved from on those stairs and done anything. And actually, when Sutek's Harbinger was going to turn everyone to sand, he was frozen again, and Mel had to save him. And again, Mel had to drive him on the scooter because he didn't know what to do. He'd led them to a situation and they were way out of their depth, and Mel's scooter got them out of it. To be quite honest, I don't know how many situations where he had them in a situation and he didn't know how to get them out of it. And he just seemed frozen. Now, that's emotions out of control. We need to train our kids and ourselves to be resilient and be able to cope in each situation. Look at this at the end. That moment at the end in Empire of Death, him screaming at the universe, is just like him screaming at the end of Dot and Bubble. This is a one-trick pony.
Yeah, but also, like, the other element, not just the emotion, but when Tom Baker's giving that speech in the Pirate Planet, I think it was, his goal is to influence and to change the other person's perspective and to win the argument, so to speak. These outbursts at no point are they trying to persuade, convince. It's almost like it's childlike in terms of it's a tantrum. You need to see it my way, just because blah.
Well, what's interesting is your Tasmanian buddy here, Triple Jazz Musical, says the emotional scenes are too excessive, so they've no weight. The opposite of Capaldi, who hit great emotional speeches and acts his way out of the park. Of course, there's an issue here, isn't there? Which is the speeches had been written for him. I don't see these speeches for Ncути yet. I mean, Ncuti'S doctor in the script seems to be told to scream, rant, cry, which is piling emotion at somebody. It's not trying to win over. It's not trying to interact. Whereas the Capaldi doctor with the Zygons, that great moment when he was telling off the Zygons and the unit, and he was basically, it was an analogy to nuclear war and the nuclear button. What a fantastic speech written by Stephen Moffat, but equally well delivered. But he was trying to interact with his enemy, so to speak, not just shout at them saying you're all rubbish, and that's what's changed. The writing's more immature as well.
I reckon I'm sorry, in terms of Capaldi, because I went to Capaldi in terms of trying to slot him into the end of Dot and Bubble, and I reckon if he'd been there, he would, when he got rejected, I think he would have said, yes, well, good luck, I'm off, bye. He just would have walked out of there. I don't think he would have given it a second thought.
I mean, I can see the Capaldi doctor with Dot and Bubble absolutely blistering them with an argument about the insecurities of racism and the intolerance they have and how bigotry bred without challenge does something. I could see the speech, but of course it would have been written by Stephen Moffat, of course. And the disappointment is that he hasn't got the bullets to fire Ncути. So the 15th Doctor, who's emoting, which might be okay in small doses, but he therefore comes across as a diminished character and actually not the centerpiece of each episode.
Yeah, but see, Capaldi could do that, but why would he? Because those characters, by the time they get to the end of that episode, they haven't gone on any kind of journey. They're where they began, really. They haven't, what's that Kelly Cook's character, Lindy, she's basically still where she started. She's not really any better, having been broken out of her world.
Right. So what about this third one? Incongruous sexualization. Obviously, Rogue plays a heavy part in the article this time. The romantic pursuit of, and it was the pursuit of Rogue, the neglect of his responsibilities looking after a 19-year-old when he'd promised he would to the mother. It seemed out of sync with his character all the way through from First Doctor. It seemed a radical shift from the reserved Doctor to one who has spontaneity and immediate sexual or romantic urges. There's no consistency and there's no moral integrity in this Doctor, therefore. He comes across as vain, loving himself. He's had moments in dialogue in this season where he knows he's good looking. This is just not where we're supposed to be. And can I just say, before I ask for your feedback, on top of that, when you have Rose Noble's character, where everybody has to say to her, you're beautiful, you're beautiful, you're beautiful. By accident, RTD is undermining a lot of work done by parents and teachers where it shouldn't be about surface looks. It shouldn't be about beauty. It should be about the beauty inside. And you're beautiful. And the Doctor saying to people, I know I'm a looker. No, stop it. This is superficial froth. And so the incongruous sexualization, the narcissism, I've added that one, by the way. But, where do you come across on this one, Dwayne?
Well, like a lot of these episodes, I've gone to what RTD has said in the doco after. And it just baffles me even more, the things that he comes up with. And he refers to this as a beautiful romance, I think, or something along those lines. He called it a beautiful romance that he could put on screen. And I found myself struggling to see anything romantic in what was portrayed there at all. This to me just, I don't know if this is a typical gay romance, if it works like that, whether it happens so quickly. But in my experience, it hasn't quite worked that way. And this seems not a romance, but it seems like a hookup. It's hookup culture rather than romance. So I don't know what RTD's got in his head, but it certainly doesn't seem like romance to me. So, and another one of the things that he said that confuses me.
Dwayne, speaking as a gay man, I feel as though this is RTD, believe it or not, thinking he's doing something clever, but he's actually serving up to the British and American and Australian public a stereotype of gay people when they're younger, especially, that it's all one-night stands and extremely promiscuous. And it's selling a stereotype that's damaging. Now, I agree with you. This is not a romance. This is a one-night stand. This is lust. You know, and it's basically saying I'm going to bed somebody because of their looks. And of course, my argument just before this was, RTD, stop making it always about looks and that kind of superficial attraction. Is this program what it used to be? It used to be about, you know, amazing universal concepts. It used to be quite deep and meaningful. Mind you, can we get rid of the soap opera too, by the way? Can we have a sci-fi concept? But yes, I think this is serving up some negative stereotyping of what you gay men get up to all the time, and you need to kind of settle down. I'm honest with you. I think it's a damaging stereotype.
You mentioned the soap opera, though. I think that RTD used soap opera elements in 2005 brilliantly, because what he was doing was trying to attract a general audience. He was trying to get it popular. I think that's what he was trying to do, and it worked. He brought in elements in a balanced way to get an interest that was more than just us fans that were dying to see the show back after so many years. Yeah. And I think that's what he did really well. I always praised him for adding those elements in series 1 all those years ago. But it seems now that instead of focusing on the large audience, they seem to be focusing on a little section of audience that's like a minute percentage. And that seems to be more important than anything. And I failed. That baffles me. I'm baffled a lot these days.
I'm baffled because he's trying to virtue signal, as we call it, or lecture on certain big isms, and yet he's falling for other ones. Problem being, fellow gay man, hello Lee, good to see you on the channel. Remember, Rogue was written by 2 women who fetishized and objectified gay men kissing for their own titillation. Gay men have known women like this for years, and we avoided them for a reason. I'm putting that up, Lee, because I totally agree with you. I know what you're talking about exactly. It's almost like the straight male kind of fantasy about 2 women. It's this nonsense that's going on here, and it's Doctor Who. It's a family show. It's a sci-fi drama. Can we please get off this soiled effect and get on with escapism? This is so far removed from, if I said Troughton, Pertwee, Colin Baker. I mean, honestly, and please, people, and I know it's not the thread, but you know people out there who will say to us, but the David Tennant Doctor kissed everybody. Right, okay then, who did that? RTD. It's the same blooming showrunner, for God's sake. You know, you can't say my argument's wrong by quoting the same blooming example back at me, you know, please. Yes, the precedent was set by the same showrunner. I have had an issue with that concept since that showrunner introduced it, all right? I'm being consistent. The show wasn't like this before RTD decided to sexualize it. It seemed a bit more adept, didn't it, Dwayne and Dan, when he had, say, Captain Jack. And Captain Jack did kiss Chris Eccleston's Doctor. But it seemed to be more of a cheeky thing, because the whole concept was the Doctor dances, which was a euphemism for sex, wasn't it, really? All that stuff. And the Doctor was... And in the Doctor dances, he came across as awkward, the Doctor, didn't he? he wasn't quite sure, you know, all this dancing. He did dance in the TARDIS at the end, but it was all about his awkwardness. I just think, as people are saying, something's changed in this man's writing. Graham Dawson, good to see you. I think I've had enough of Doctor Who. I think it's time to walk away with All Who. Sorry, I'm late to the show. How very dare you? Oh no, I always think we should stick with things, because I think while we've got a voice and we've got what we call agency, we can actually maybe change it. The more I've been running this stream, the more I start thinking I actually want to start actually a campaign, because I'm not going to rant. I'm going to come up with arguments. You are not going to damage my TV program. This is going too far. There's a line in the sand that's been drawn, and I think rather than us all leave the battlefield, we should stay on it, Graham, don't you think? And actually be in it to win it. RTD will move on to other things. He has that kind of flippancy to his career. He will move on. And I don't want a damaged husk of a show left. You know, like some remains of some planets left by Scooter. I want to really kind of be in it to win it.
Being devil's advocate, though, who drew that line in the sand to start with?
Oh yeah,
where are we coming from?
Well, it depends what language we're using, doesn't it? I suppose, Dwayne. You know, some people call it culture wars. I haven't called it that. You know, who has declared war? If somebody declares war, do you have to defend yourself? Why are people pushing? I think one of my very, very earliest saloons quoted from, obviously, the LA Times, who'd interviewed, you know, the big promotion campaigns, the Time magazine. There were loads of them. And the costume designer, Pam Downs, had been told that the costume for Ncuti'S had to be lots of different ones, and there had to be societal pushing, gender pushing. Now, that can only come from on the top, because actually Ncuti'S wanted one costume, and obviously somebody high up said, no, we want societal pushing, gender pushing outfits. So somebody is pushing an agenda. That has to be the only implication I can take. Right. So yes, it's just that you have to fight or you have to pitch. The next observation was this 15th Doctor has a lack of initiative and a lack of heroism.
I think like never before. It's incredible actually to watch. I think we've been. I haven't gone back to watch the series. I don't know if I will, but I think it would be even more stark if you went back and watched it one after the other, to see how much of a non-hero this Doctor is. I guess with the 2 episodes that he's not there, that's not his fault. But I don't know. Maybe it is RTD's fault, and he could have written around. I don't know why they left him out so early in the season before he was so established.
Yeah, the strategy is a major problem, and I think one of my saloons did talk about the mistakes in the strategy of RTD, BBC, and Disney. Triple Jazz here. I thought RTD was against stereotyping. This is one thing I will always call out, and I go a bit stronger on certain things. If somebody's going to preach to me, just make sure your argument has consistency and the logic line goes all the way through. Otherwise, I will come at you, because nobody gets to preach to me when you haven't joined and got all your ducks in a row. And yes, if you're going to argue about RTD, if RTD is going to argue about certain stereotyping, just make sure you are watertight and there's a consistency. And as you say, Triple Jazz, Davros. But he's happy to stereotype gay people, which I know is a very ironic thing because he's gay. And I don't think he would want to do down gay people. He's certainly not trying to do that. But he's from a certain bubble. And it's not my northeastern working class bubble. And to be quite honest, in some ways, he makes our situation harder. He's not helping. I wish he'd shut up. You know, not everybody lives in London where you can walk around holding hands. And there's loads of countries on this planet where Doctor Who is not popular. And surprise, surprise, it's because it's pushing a very liberal agenda and people are finding it's not matching their conservative values. Doctor Who is so out there. It's one of those freak shows now. You know, it's one of those shows like the Eurovision Song Contest is not shown in every country in Europe or Middle East because of some of the dance routines and you know, items of apparel were on there, and certainly the Doctor Who, not the Doctor Who one, the British one this year, which was lots of gay gyrating, that was censored in many countries. You know, you can't just make a program and think everybody's going to consume it because everyone has the same values as some Londoners in Soho. You know, honestly, I was in danger when I was in Sydney. I remember there were shootings of gay people in the 1980s when I was walking down Oxford Street, and I don't want to return to stuff like that. But I think if you push an agenda, you get people angry, and it pushes them back.
And on the lack of initiative and heroism, you know, for me, it hit home with Rogue, especially because I just felt that Rogue acted more like the Doctor in that episode than the Doctor.
Yes, he looked quite good, actually. He acted... There was something about him. He just acted like the Doctor. He looked in charge.
Well, and at the end, he threw himself... Yeah. He sacrificed himself for the companion.
Too right. And I think a lot of people said this last night on our Deadly Assassin show, that why is it the Doctor's suddenly the most diminished character around compared to the past? I
mean, to me, that started in the Jodie era, though, especially like at the end of that Timeless Child one where where she lets Ko Sharma sacrifice himself.
Yeah, it can happen once or twice. Somebody says, look, I've lived my long life and that, you know, whatever. There might be a situation. We've seen it before where people have pressed the button and the Doctor's not been there. But it's happening a lot now. Good old Triple Jazz, still there in Tassie. RTD stereotypes characters as either bad or good, depending on his own agenda. And that is a very childish way. Yeah, it's too binary. The world is not binary, and nobody should make it binary. Politicians do that all the time, and they're out of order. Deadman... the costumes, Whittaker specifically chose hers to be androgynous, but RTD made the clothing change to Tennant because he didn't want a man wearing women's clothing ostensibly, which is ironic with the David Tennant situation and his argument on trans rights. So X-Man, this version of Doctor Who made me cancel my Disney, and I ordered BritBox to watch all the classic Doctor Who's. Don't blame you. What's your go-to story? Hartnell's Ghost. Brendan, you make valid and eloquent criticisms. However, the RTD get where modern audience fan club will call you a hater or grifter because that's all they've got. We can say that. I'd love to see their arguments. I mean, take clips from our shows and tell me where the evidence is. I know, you know what it's like. They won't listen.
I haven't experienced that though, Brendan. Like, I've seen more people just not happy with this season than throwing hate at people. I don't know. Maybe I'm living under a rock.
I think people have gone quiet. I think that speaks volumes. Nobody's talking about the show. That is a killer. Think about it. On the heroism front, the article said it was the Beatles who saved the day in Devil's Cord. He could not kill the snot monster in Space Babies. The AI dad, the dad who was dead in Boom, solved that story. Ruby took charge when the Doctor was being incompetent, especially in the Dr. Light episodes. In Rogue, Rogue solved it, as you said, Dan. In the 5th story, which I think was Dot and Bubble, he gave up too easily. In episode 7, Mel tells him off. And yet he does do a tiny bit of problem solving in Empire of Death. Where's the heroism? Where's the leadership? I think it's a good point.
It's a very good point, because after this very few episodes in the season, you want to get the character pretty strong. And I was thinking of the tagline that it was being given throughout. That this is a cosmic joyride. And I certainly felt that the Doctor wasn't feeling too much joy. He was crying a lot. He was cranky a lot. He was feeling some superficial joy from time to time, but there was not much satisfaction in his story. So he can't have been very satisfied by the end of this season.
No.
And the resolution of the whole season with how it was done was almost comical rather than heroic.
Now, as we come to the final observation here, has everybody who's been enjoying our stream subscribed? I mean, it's not budging at the moment. I'm thinking, yeah, what's going on here? So I know where you live. I can find you. And those 3 Daleks will help me. And they can fly now. You know that. So yeah, I'm kidding you on with that visual there. And of course, me and Dwayne's one of our favorite go-to stories, The Creature from the Pit. Yeah, that. Come on, imagine that's your finger and you're trying to find a subscribe button. I'm sure you know where it is. You're just you're making me sweat our way. You're acting like Disney with their season 3 negotiations with the BBC. That's what you're doing, you sneaky devils. Come on. So final observation, which I think is a real killer one, because I think, although it sounds superficial, this goes to the core of the problem, which is the constant costume changes. And as it says here, so you know I'm not putting words in its mouth and leading you, it says there's no consistent costume. And their argument is, because he's only had 9 episodes without a consistent kind of visage, he's not recognizable, he's not familiar to people, he's therefore not as impactful. And it adds to that the crying, the over emotion, that's inconsistent, erratic kind of characterization. You don't know what he's going to look like and you don't know how he's going to behave. He comes across as quirky and disjointed, and therefore his identity is diluted.
So you were reading that from the article, were you?
Yeah.
Well, there's not much more to add than that, because it's totally correct. Look at the images that are up there, all those different characters. Like, not even costume, there was hair changes as well. So even a couple of times with wigs. So very strange. More than a couple.
Yes. Yeah. I know I've got a few here. Dan, what do you reckon?
Yeah, look, I mean, some of them are just, I don't mind the changing so much, but there are quite a few costumes, like that one where he looks like I think it's the one in where looks like a fisherman. I'm just like, yeah, I mean, some of them land better than others. I get the whole playing around with the period piece, but in Rogue, but I tend to agree. I just I don't necessarily want him in the same thing, but I think it needs to have a sort of a signature.
You see, it's funny, isn't it? The accusation made against RTD is he might be going down this Marvel universe road, yeah? So if he is going down that road, they have distinctive imagery. And so it's a very confusing pattern we're getting here. Is he going down that road? Although I don't want him to. Most people suspect he is, with the spin-offs and everything that are mooted. But then equally, then why doesn't he just give the Doctor one distinct visage? And by the way, those outfits that you see there, societal pushing, gender pushing. I mean, the one you're mentioning that's on the bottom there, they're from 73 yards. It made him look silly. I just thought he looked like a silly man. The leather jacket and the white top, yeah, I suppose that's that blooming Grease. I thought he looked like a bit of a spiv. I always say Huggy Bear. I'm sorry, I'm a Starsky and Hutch kid. So Huggy Bear to me was the Devil's Cord blue outfit. The Bridgerton, it's cosplay, which is kind of cosplay. I mean, it's not even blooming serious. I think the only ones that seem to kind of have some sort of something about them are the top ones there, and they all seem to have those oranges, and it's the leather jacket. The Waxwork uses that one, doesn't it? So basically, that seems to be one of the go-to ones. But you see, Dwayne, isn't it? It's interesting. Colin Baker was pulled down by that blooming outfit. And that was one outfit. It got changed slightly for Terror of the Vervoids and stuff. But he had to act his socks off to defeat the outfit, really. And that was a bit of a shame. And Rachel goes mad about that. And now we're on the reverse end of things, where we get millions of different blooming costumes. And it's to me, because he was in Barbie, I just think that he's been turned into a Ken doll.
Well, to be honest, it makes my eyeballs spin a little. and I was wondering what he's going to be in this week. But what would make it a little acceptable would be if he had that internal character that you could look up to and respect as the Doctor, but he doesn't even have that. So I would like to know if I mean, Capaldi, when he went to the hoodie and the T-shirt, that was quite different to the other outfits that he had. So he had a little bit of a change that was, contrasting. A lot of people didn't like that hoodie, but he was the same character and he had that consistency, which this Doctor doesn't have that consistency. He sort of goes wherever the wind blows with his character. So it's hard to, you can use the lack of costume as that, but I think it's less that and more the internal character of this Doctor that is the problem.
You make a good point, and the other one I want to say is, and it's a shame really, because we've had this strange situation where 2 series have been filmed all together, really. Before you get proper feedback from audience and public, they'll have done whatever they do in season 2 as well. So as let's have a look. Robbie Bonham is talking about McCoy, and a few have talked about the, when season 26, the Sylvester McCoy Doctor went darker deliberately with even the outfit. So there was an adaptation and a hint and a signal of where they were going to go in their direction. And I do say poor Ncuti, he's the actor. He has 2 seasons doing all this dress up without really having any feedback to RTD saying, is it possible our Doctor can be very this or very that? I mean, has he got any agency in his own party, I wonder?
I get the sense that he doesn't care. He's just doing the job. I think he's RTD's pick, and he is, he's a big social media star, and that's all that matters. He just does whatever the job is, and then he's going to move on to the next job eventually. Whereas Hartnell in the middle there, he really cared about the role. If you look at, there's an interesting thing about Hartnell's character of the Doctor. You look at interviews, the very few interviews that we've got of William Hartnell, and compare that to the character of the Doctor. They're totally different things. Hartnell was not playing himself. He played a constructed character, and he put a lot of thought and effort and care and, dare I say, love into that characterization. Not the case with Ncuti. Ncuti is playing himself. There's no thought whatsoever goes into the character. It's just him. Totally different to the original Doctor there.
What's Dan, if I had to say now, since we're talking about costumes and looks, what's your favorite Doctor look?
Oh, look, I like sort of the long coats and the traditional Edwardian. I mean, even Tom had they had those elements that flowed right through all the Doctors, and I like Colin Baker's costume. I think only Colin Baker could pull off Colin Baker's costume. It is very much of its time, but at the same time, like, I don't want to see it come back. It very much defines that Doctor, and I mean, there are obviously a few. I mean, there's so little of. I mean, really, Colin only had 2 proper seasons.
Yeah,
and he was. It takes time to dial things in if you're trying to do something new. And clearly, his first episode really put him off on the wrong foot with the way they sort of experimented there, and it obviously put it blew the confidence out of the show.
Well, there's a few people here saying Paul McGann. Now, Paul McGann's changed, didn't it? And I preferred his look in Night of the Doctor, as did Paul McGann, because I don't think Paul McGann was quite happy with how it was in the movie, the wig and all that stuff. So Paul McGann had the best costume, but no, that is disagreed with by Sir X-Man. Tom Baker had the best costume. We're all in it to win it here, aren't we? We've all got different eras. I put Gareth Morgan up earlier, and he said the blue suit from the Devil's Cord was his best, the Ncuti one. It's smart. It's smart. I just thought it just looked a bit spivvy, and I want my doctor, and I certainly want the first Black Doctor to be taken seriously. I don't want him to look like a fop or a pimp or anything. I want him to look like a serious doctor. And I think Jodie Whittaker deserved, and if she did have input into that costume, that's a shame, because I wanted the first female doctor to be taken seriously and have weight and impact too. And I don't think the costume helped. I mean, how many women do you see walking around looking like that? Again,
I thought she looked better in Capaldi's costume at the beginning of
Yes,
Woman of Fell to Earth.
Yeah.
You know, she looks stronger in that episode, I think, because of the costume.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it's, you know, costumes are important. I don't think it's the be all and end all, but they do help the person, you know, shape that character, don't they? It becomes part of them.
Well, if your doctor isn't going to have a consistent costume, how do kids and people and the normal punters out there recognize him as the doctor rather than Ncuti'S? So it's not costume. So is it his mannerisms? Well, apart from honey, babes, a bit of showboating, and crying and being overly emotional, and some would say, and some will still say unmanly and stuff like that. People will talk like that. I'm trying to imagine getting in the heads of just the normal public who go, "Oh, I don't know, watch this. He's acting weird. He's acting strange. I just want to, if he's a male actor, I just want him to act like a blooming male, please. Just like we wanted the female doctor to be female. I mean, if you're going to pick a female doctor, make her female, for God's sake." And I just think because it's the first Black Doctor, and I don't like all these firsts and nonsenses, but people go there, the media love it. If it's the first Black Doctor, can we serve him well? Give him a damn cool costume, stick to it. I think a safe leather jacket and a vest and trousers is fine for now. It served Chris Eccleston. Give him some strong storylines. Don't, oh God, you've got a Black Doctor, so let's do lots of racial stories. Oh, be more subtle than that. You can do better than that, RTD. You know, I mean, I just think, I personally think the actor is being underserved, and that has happened since Jodie, the latter end of Capaldi, and has now happened with this doctor. I think, unfortunately, the writing is not up to what people are wanting anymore, and it's not fair to the actors.
Yeah, totally agree. Totally agree with that. Because I do see, I have seen glimpses of potential in Ncuti'S. You know, you get flashes of that. I actually get more flashes of potential than I ever really got with Jodie. And I gave Jodie a lot more chances during her run than I have with Ncuti'S. I think I've probably lost patience now. So I'm a lot less forgiving these days than I used to be.
Yeah.
Because of that. But yeah, you're absolutely right. He hasn't been served well enough by the writing.
I'll just ask X-Man here, because X-Man did come on last week, and you did make a remark like this, and I totally agree with it. Thank you. I said that last week with you about the first Black Doctor. I appreciate you for that. There's nothing to appreciate. I think this is just fairness, isn't it? You know, I don't like all Ncuti'S interviews pushing hard on this. However, it is still right that he is given a chance to come across and be compared to all doctors and not be seen as the Barbie doll, the accessory doctor. I mean, you know, I'm sure any Black viewer out there would be furious to see their first Black characterization of the Doctor turned into just an action man who RTD plays dress-ups with. No, make him serious, make him powerful, make him master of the universe. Come on. It's just underselling it. Robbie Bonham's an Irish guy that loves the Doctor's Englishness. So you will hate this honey baby lark, won't you? And yes, I don't identify with him now. We had Babette Bombshell last night. The first female Doctor should have been more like Hartnell, a stodgy old Victorian woman who behaved like an action hero, leaping into danger. How many of us, Babette, said, we said, try and get somebody like Helen Mirren. Try and get somebody older, somebody strong, somebody. And then I'm trying not to critique Jodie Whittaker, but I think it's always interesting to get an older actor. However, I also know, why did they get rid of Peter Capaldi? Because they said people weren't taking an older Doctor anymore. Shocking. So, I mean, we've done our roundup of the week, so to speak there, Dwayne. Is there anything else on your Doctor Who brain that we need to detox? Any issues out there that you've come across? Any things that you'd like us to explore for a moment?
Well, as far as characterization goes, my alarm bells started ringing when, I guess, first of all, Neil Patrick Harris came out saying that this was going to be the gayest Doctor ever. And I thought that was a joke, but I thought surely not. That was proven wrong. Then when the promotion started happening for this new series, there was a lot of focus and emphasis on the actors who were coming in and what they were. So we had the kid who was coming in, disabled kid. That was the big focus. We had the drag queen that was coming in. The massive focus on that. And then the queerness of Ncuti'S. That was the focus. And when you compare that kind of marketing to just think back. You don't have to think back that far. Well, for some it might be, but for me it's not. Back to Chris Eccleston.
Yeah.
And he, just when he stuck his hand out and said, "Do you want to come with me? Come and have the trip of a lifetime." Remember that promotion?
Yeah.
That was the kind of promotion that got people in and got people excited. Not what kind of person, what their identity was, who was doing this part and that part. It was the story. People wanted to be gripped by the story and the character. He had more character in that "Do you want to come with me?" than anything Ncuti'S done this whole season. So I think that was where my alarm bells started ringing, and they're ringing louder than ever.
And it's awful, isn't it? We don't actually want to be in this position.
No, definitely not.
I don't want. It's not like at the end of the season I'm thinking, "Oh, I was proven right," because I never started the season saying it's going to be doom ridden. I'm getting people saying, "Brendan, we told you," but I have to stay open. I'm not one of those channels or streams or people who goes into something with a prejudice already set up. Unfortunately, my little doubts that I have to say, my biggest alarm bell. I know what you mean by the casting announcements, Dwayne. It was when we had the Children in Need Davros announcement. That set the shivers up my spine, because I realized then, if he's really going to do that, if he really means that, and for a while I thought, are you joking? Are you joking? Is this April Fool's Day? If he's so serious about retconning such an iconic Doctor Who villain for such a silly reason, I don't want you to touch anything. And that's when I really got worried about it. Yes, I know the casting announcement. I was waiting for some good casting announcements, some really exciting ones. And then they said they were saving some, and I thought, oh, this is just getting the tick box stuff, which is okay. That's the window dressing, but the main ones are coming. And we waited and we waited. I mean, I suppose it's Bonnie Lanford, isn't it? It's like we've got Bonnie Lanford back or something. Dan, is there anything on your head that's going, it needs exploring, it needs discussing, something that bothered you?
No, look, I was optimistic going into this season. I knew we'd get messaging for sure. I never thought we wouldn't get messaging, but I have been shocked at the characterization and the lack of characterization through the season, the inconsistency, that to me is what has shocked me, is the fall from grace that RTD's had in terms of the quality of the writing. I honestly thought that the gaps that we saw through the Chibnall era would get plugged. Yes, we'd get messaging, but it would be made up for with the fact that the writing would be better. And wow, that's to me is the real shocker of this season, is the fact that we haven't plugged the gaps in the writing department.
Arnold's Ghost is just reminding me, RTD said some of the production team agreed with him. The thing is, when I did one of my saloons, he actually says he wouldn't work with anybody who argues with him. Final point, lads, because it's a key one. Every Doctor Who fan is thinking about this and gossiping about this and saying what their opinion is. So I'm going to get yours since you're here live. You've obviously seen every streamer's discussed this. I've already discussed it at my saloon already. But when Deadline article came out and it talked about whether Disney is going to pull out or not, you know that our friends on Type 40 say they know somebody and they say season 3 has been commissioned. I wait to see the evidence. My argument always was, if you're streetwise, and I would have thought Disney businessmen like everybody else are streetwise, you make the BBC sweat. Why would you rush into a commitment when you could get more control of the product by making them sweat and give in, getting it cheaper? What's your thoughts, Dwayne? What's your antennae saying? Do you think Disney's in it for the long term, or do you think they're going to walk out?
It's very hard to know because Disney has made some very questionable decisions in recent years. So anything is possible with Disney. They dare I say, they've made some very silly decisions. So I don't know, but it doesn't sound like there's a lot of noise coming from that part of the world as far as Disney goes. So you would think, if it was that successful and that wonderful, they'd be bleating about it at the very least.
Yeah, Dwayne, before I move to Dan, my instinct was always, when you had TV shows doing really well, you'd got an announcement quite early on that another series had been commissioned, don't you? You kind of got, they were keen to tell the audience there's more. Now, whether it's because season 2 is in the bank, so they don't need to do that, or whether it's because, as you say, the mood music isn't brilliant. And this article, if you've seen it, does talk about there's a lot of silence out there. There's not much being said apart from a few whispers. Disney will make a decision on its future relationship with the show soon after the spin-off The War Between the Land and the Sea wraps. Now, one of my earlier saloons had an article that said they reckon that Disney would make a decision in early 2025. So I was kind of served a curveball when Dan Hadley said on Type 40 that his sources had said that season 3 has been commissioned, because I thought, gosh, really? But we haven't heard anything, and the silence, I think, speaks volumes. And then you've got the actual idea that Nielsen and everything is saying it only got up to 7th on Disney's list, and then it soon fell out, and it didn't have much competition at the time. Even the Acolyte did better. And the gossip from America is the figures are underwhelming. They're okay, but they're not stellar. But that's an indictment when you think of all the marketing expense that's gone on this. So, Dan, where do you stand? Do you think they're going to do a season 3 and 4? Or do you think it'd be a shorter season? Or do you think they are making the BBC sweat?
Surely it can't get much shorter than what it was this season. But I know I always felt whether Disney was in or not, you'd get the 3rd season at least. But I suppose I think it'll come down to whether or not RTD wants it or not. I can't imagine him. I wouldn't have thought he'd want to let the thing rest if it wasn't successful. I'm sure he's not going to want to leave it or walk away if it's not in reasonable shape. But I can't see the BBC letting that occur. I think if RTD wants to give it let it go, I have a feeling the BBC would walk away from it at that point if Bad Wolf were out.
You see, RTD's kind of sat on the fence on this. Very early doors, you've seen the article, I think, when he said, we don't need Disney in a way. We can go back to low-budget Doctor Who and we can make horror fan rock every week. And I'm clapping like a seal. Yeah, go for it. Because I haven't really seen evidence of the bigger budget. I know you got the big, massive LED screen for Boom and stuff like that. I get it. But I sometimes wonder, with a bigger budget, could they have made slightly shorter but more numerous episodes to allow us to get back to the core of Doctor Who, which should be cliffhangers, rather than well, you're going to get some big budget, but say 5 or 6 or 7 episodes. You think, no, dilute it a bit more, maybe down to 35 minutes or something like that. I really do think do that. I just think, why is everybody obsessed with this longer format, which was never Doctor Who? And I have to say, can I just say one thing before I get your feedback? RTD, I'm sick of saying, I want to be like Buffy. I want to be like Strange New Worlds. I want to be like that program. I want to be like Bridgerton. I want to be like that. Doctor Who was a pioneering program. Can Doctor Who try and do something that it thinks should be right for the program and let other people follow us? Doctor Who, when it came back in 2005, reinvented British family Saturday night audiences. That and Strictly. And so why are we not trying to be pioneering again? Why are we wanting to copy? I don't care if the format's an hour episodes with other programs, 45 minutes. Doctor Who should do what Doctor Who does best. What do you reckon, Drain?
Well, I was just sitting down to watch the new series of Cobra Kai the other day, and those episodes go for 30, 35 minutes. So
There you go.
there's lots of streaming shows go for a shorter format. There's plenty on Netflix that you get 25, 30-minute episodes. So they could easily revert the format back to the 25, 30-minute episode and maybe do 12 of them and see how that goes. Like, they could do it as an experiment. And it could work. It would certainly change the storytelling, but I think that's probably what it needs. It needs something drastic like that to shake it up a bit. But it's certainly not something they have to stick to. Certainly not being stuck to everywhere.
And what do you both guys think? I mean, I really do think Doctor Who needs to be more of a fixture across the year. I know some programs just do 3 specials in a year, but Doctor Who's not that type of program. Doctor Who it sat as a fixture every year, didn't it, really? And it was that episodic format. If you didn't like one story, as in, or you didn't like one world, you knew in a couple of weeks you were going to get a different one. That's how it worked. And plus the cliffhangers. If you're going to do 8 episodes or 6 episodes, or say season 3 is commissioned, but it's shorter, which, as you know, is an indictment, Doctor Who's there and it's a blink and it's over again. Doctor Who needs to plant itself, set some roots going in our culture, in our younger generations, and not just be a blink of an eye and then it's the next fad. And so that's why my argument, Dwayne and Dan, is if you've got a bigger budget, just have more episodes. They don't have to be flash, just well written, scary, Jeopardy, cliffhangers, and Doctor Who's on for, say, 3 or 4 months of the year instead of quickly.
In my opinion, the Chibnall era looks like it's got a bigger budget than this series. I don't know if anyone else feels that way, but I've certainly heard that there's much more money pumped into this, but it seems cheaper somehow. And I can't put my finger on it, but the Chibnall era looks more cinematic to me.
I know what you mean. Dan?
Yeah, no, I tend to agree. I feel like the production values and in many aspects of the Chibnall era, the money made it to the screen. I think there's in this season, there are lots of things where you can see where money was spent, but it doesn't add to the story. It doesn't take it to the next level. In fact, I think, if they'd axed all the CGI around Sutek and focused on some good practical effects, having people possessed and, levitating and moving things with force, and, there's a lot of practical effects that you could be doing. I mean, to be honest, Boom with the big screens, they were going on about the big screens in the background. I'm thinking, mate, you could have easily just set that in a quarry or in a forest, a British countryside. You didn't need any of that. It was
if it was a nod to Genesis of the Daleks and the Harry Fourth Doctor moment, you could have almost gone back to the very same quarry and almost gone, do you know what? We made this episode of Boom in the very same place as Genesis of the Daleks. Isn't that nice? You know, you could have done that and then fulfilled your criteria there and saved an awful lot of money. We've got loads of people in the thread who seem to like our idea. Go back to 30-minute episodes, have cliffhangers. You see, the audience wants it. Now, am I...
the Cobra Kai 30-minute formula, well, I mean, Doctor Who was always 20, 22, 25 minutes, whatever. The Good Place was similar. You can move things along nice and quickly, but also take the time in the occasional episode to develop some characters and sit with something, and then with the promise that we're going to move on soon, so that you're not stuck, bored to tears.
Now, Dwayne,
but Cobra Kai also uses the cliffhanger as well. So
yes,
if everything's dropped at once, like everything, a lot of shows are dropped altogether, like Cobra Kai is, you'll binge it too. So you'll sit there all day and just watch it one episode after the other because of that cliffhanger. So they don't keep you hanging on till the next week, like, because television's different, obviously. But if they're done right, they can keep you binging all day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they've got another 2 5-episode blocks as well for the season, so they're pulling you to the November block, and they're probably going to tease you into the January February block. So they are still dragging you along, even though
Dwayne,
there's gaps.
Dwayne, if I can ask, as a parent, so how old are your kids? Because I'm intrigued as to, do they like cliffhangers? Do they like that episodic format of anything nowadays?
They do. My kids will stop what they're doing. Today I threw on The Invisible Enemy because I'm still going through my season 15 box set.
Yeah.
And they just appeared. They're 8 and 10.
Okay. So prime age for Doctor Who.
Yep.
Do they like Doctor Who?
Love it.
They're not press scanned by their fan dad.
They could be. No, I don't force them. I don't force them to watch it, and they often complain when I turn it off and say we've got to do something else now. We've been sitting here for 6 hours.
Now we've been saying about the big budget and not seeing it, or as you said, Dan, that LED screen, very impressive if you want to say it's impressive. But we Doctor Who fans, am I right in thinking it wasn't necessarily the special effects that kept us turning up every week? It was the stories and the character. Now, am I right though, Dwyn? What about the younger audience? If they see a shoddy special effect, will they think I'm not going to be associated with this, or do they still go with it?
Doesn't even cross their minds. They just engaged in the story. That's it. Mind you, a lot of the DVD Blu-rays now have the special. I always watch with the new special effects anyway, but still, they're not excessive. You've still got the stories, you've still got the characters, you've still got the cliffhangers that keep them going. So
we've got Sneeve Ron Sykes. The DNA of the show is episodic fiction. Classic cliffhangers are fundamental. I think we're onto something. I think as a community, we need to stick together. I think we need to start campaigning, I have to say, because I think we all have a voice in this. And I'm not hearing many people say, Brendan, you're completely wrong. You're a dinosaur. Episodic telly's gone. 30-minute format's gone. I don't think anyone under the age of 15 will watch anything with a cheaper special effect if the story's brilliant. I'm not hearing that. I mean, it's great to have parents on the panel because they will tell me, I know as a teacher, the kids need entertaining. They're no fools. And, but I, as an English teacher, I still think kids, if it's a good story, they'll go with all the froth stuff. Good story. And you seem to be saying that, Dwayne, yourself.
Absolutely.
So that's been the Detox Hour times 2. You know what we're like. It's a nice gimmick title, but it always ends up being 2 hours. Thank you for you coming on for the first time. I will just give your a stream a shout out again. Your sirensofaudio.com, Dwayne. What's next?
Could I just mention too?
Yep.
We this weekend we've got an episode coming out with Will Hadcroft. He's written a couple of BBC audio books. The next one his latest one is called Dark Contract. So we're going to be talking to him about that, but talking about a few other things as well. He's always great to have on. He and I are great fans of the tripod. So if anyone was
Yes.
grew up in the 80s, we love the tripods. And there's a big tripods convention coming up in the UK very shortly. So I'm wishing I was there, but I won't be able to make that, unfortunately. But we do have events that the Sirens of Audio holding in Australia. We've got Fraser Hines and Katie Manning doing events in various cities throughout Australia in September. And this time next week, or in about a week's time, we're going to be announcing another big one for towards the end of the year. So keep your eye on the website for those details too. Be fun.
There you go. So sirensofaudio.com. They've got loads. I mean, how many episodes have you got?
Fraser Hines came on and did our 200th. So I think we're about 205 plus some bonus episodes here and there.
Yeah. So please check them out. And thanks for following us, Dwayne. And thanks for coming on today. Hopefully you'll come on again. And of course, Cyber Matt Strikes, who obviously we started talking, we all know because he slagged off our puppets. We slagged off our puppets. And he's killed them off. They're like a compost heap from the Vervoids. So thank you for being with us again, Cyber Matt Strikes. And we'll do this again next week, shall we?
Yeah, always. Sounds good.
The thread is alive, and we've had so many people. Yeah, of course, Hartnell's Ghost. Thanks, Brendan and the panel. Another entertaining show. So many people. Robbie Bonham, who said he's a teacher too, and he agrees with what I said about good stories. That's all you need. But no, thanks for your time, everybody. Remember how you contact us. Remember to subscribe. Give us a like before you finish and click on your notifications, because I noticed there Heather said she didn't get a notification. So just check them, please. We're still now trying to get to 1,100 subscribers. You know, that's how you go in life, isn't it? You try and build. So please, please give us a favor. Thank you. Lads, thank you for your time. Good night to Australia, and I'll see you all again. Okay? Bye.
Bye-bye.